Four, join me, and one, and two, and three. Okay, we're all warmed up now. By the way, the bridge is open every Wednesday and Saturday for 6 weeks for the sailboat exodus, going to dry docks for the winter. Tomorrow morning, downtown, look from around 10 a.m. Let's get right into buildings. On your left, 3 towers become the Hotel St. Regis and residences from a young woman architect, Jeannie Gang, Company Studio Gang, topping out the highest tower in 2020. At 1,198 feet, Aqua Tower here. Excuse me, Aqua is our other building. 1,198 feet, 363 meters. That's the Hotel St. Regis right here in residences. And you know what that means? It's the 3rd tallest building in Chicago, but he gives our Jeannie Gang a title. The tallest building on the face of the world by a woman-led architectural firm. Yeah, pretty cool. Pretty cool right there. Look at the flow of the towers. Jeannie said her inspiration and design came from a frustrum, the crystal formation you would find if you looked up close at my birthstone sapphire. It kind of looks like an hourglass. Unless maybe you survived the 60s like I did, then you'll see a lava lamp in the same design. I have 4 at home. There are 6 different tints of blue, green, and clear glass, as Jeannie evokes the unique colors of the Chicago River water due to low algae content. And then we get to the highest tower, and 2 floors don't have walls, but a blow-through floor to confuse the wind. Chicago's nickname is the Windy City. A northeast throughout the lake might be 80 miles an hour. Gotta trick the wind. My hero, Bucky Fuller, who gave the world the geodesic dome, taught at Southern Illinois University, was known to start his 6-hour lectures with 3 simple words: the wind sucks. Wind is no more than a high-pressure zone seeking low pressure. You got a problem with the wind? Here's a tip. Put a hole in your building. Problem solved. The wind's going to whistle right through. Looming in front of us is the current 2nd tallest building in Chicago, Trump International Hotel and Tower, Adrian Smith Architect, Skidmore, Owings and Merrill, 2009. I'm interested in the dramatic stair-like setbacks. You see the patios, the cutaways. This is introducing us to an architectural style called contextualism. Architecture doesn't happen alone in a vacuum. Everything is connected. Everything is relative. You want to be a good neighbor. So everywhere you see a cutaway in that building, it corresponds to the height of a neighboring building. In other words, you got this oversized building moving into the neighborhood. Be cool, baby. Don't overtake that neighborhood. Be a part of it. The gray box on your right, our shoreline dock for Michigan Avenue, is 401 North Mich, introducing us to modernism, the boxes which fill our modern cities. Modernism was born at the Bauhaus. Who has heard of this famous art school? 1920s Germany, merging industry and art. Now, the early modernists coming out of the Bauhaus, they were no nonsense, utilitarian, functional. They celebrate structure, materials, and walk around saying the brick is another teacher. But guess what modernists hate on a building? Decoration. It's really ornamentation. To a modernist, that's bourgeois, superfluous, dishonest. In modernism, express the structure. 3 words: skeleton, skin, space. Boom, you're done. That's all you need. Look at the building. Skeleton is the frame that holds it up. Skin is the glass curtain wall. We hang off that frame, and space, 90% of the time, a box, a square. The most intriguing building with mosque-like Moorish yellow on its dome on our right is the Hotel Intercontinental, project of the Shriners, built as the Medina Athletic Club in 1929, when they mistakenly believed that big yellow dome was going to be a landing pad for airships, like the Goodyear blimp. And that's the worst idea in a city crammed with skyscrapers I've ever heard. They never landed any blimps up there. That steampunk dream would die with the crash of the Hindenburg. And after that, blimps, dirigibles, and zeppelins, except for Led Zeppelin, fell out of favor. London can have Big Ben, and Paris the Eiffel Tower. I'll take the clock tower of the Wrigley Building on our right. 1921, commissioned by the chewing gum king, William Wrigley Jr., who was a young man, first sold Juicy Fruit gum at our World's Fair way back in 1893. He brings the fair home, the Beaux Arts or City Beautiful style, where classical prototypes uplift the soul. Clock Tower of the Wrigley Building, modeled on the 11th century Girolda Tower in Sevilla in Spain. And from my favorite London architect, the Gherkin man, if you will, Sir Norman Foster's Apple Store, with a wall that's hardly there and a roof that evokes an Apple laptop. Now later on, go do your shopping on one magnificent mile of Michigan Avenue. We call it the French Manor Boule de Mich. It was inspired by the great boulevards of Paris. Burnham's plan was to turn Chicago into Paris on the prairie. But hey, what happened to the bridge? Let's take it to the bridge. We call the bridge DuSable Bridge. In Chicago, you don't forget where you came from. Jean-Baptiste Pontdusable was the first permanent resident. African-American, a French-speaking fur trader, Haitian roots. He started an empire right up there. After the tour, you can find the statue of Mr. DuSable, and you can take a selfie with our founder. Now, 45 degrees off the left bow, the World's Fair influence lives on in the beauty of the Jewelers Building with cupola or dome and classic water tanks. Inspired by a 15th century Italian monastery, the Certosa di Pavia, who was built here for the jewelers trade. Hey, movie fans, you might remember Christian Bale as Batman in the movie Batman Begins. Near the end of that first film of the trilogy, he's sitting on that water tank, the old Cape Crusader, looking out over his domain. And I think he was thinking, whoa, Chicago makes a pretty cool Gotham City. Now, directly ahead of you, there's a soaring skyscraper from Spanish architect Ricardo Bofill of Taller Architectura, 77 West Wacker Drive. Now, Bofill is a modern classicist. I mean, look at this building. It's a soaring skyscraper with a Greek temple A-frame roof. I see this building every day. I give it human qualities. I imagine a lonely skyscraper fell in love and married the ancient Greek Parthenon. That would be their child. Now, this mixing of classic and modern elements is okay. This is an architectural style known as postmodernism. After 30 years of boxes, people were bored. Postmodern architects became the DJs of the architectural world. Sampling in the architect's style. Boots, pants, boots, pants, boots, pants, boots, pants. And turning a building into a mashup. Now for your pure black box Bauhaus School, modernism, right there. AMA Plaza, 1971. The final American commission of Ludwig Mies van der Rohe. He was the third director of the Bauhaus School in Germany. He came right here to Chicago in 1938 to head up the Illinois Institute of Technology and spread the minimalist modern style, or as Mies said it best, you probably heard this phrase, less is more, building philosophy around the globe. So there's this rebellious student from Chicago studying at the Bauhaus with Mies. His name is Bertrand Goldberg, and he ain't preaching what his teachers are teaching. He's got no love of boxes. Bertrand Goldberg wants a building to have a circle to bring people together. So when Bertrand Goldberg does a modern building, check out circle gets the square with the Marina City Towers, which we have called the Corn Cob Towers since 1967. This is Marina City. Goldberg called it curvilinear flower form, a stem housing elevated utilities, the rings like petals. Now what you're looking at is a complete city with 4 restaurants, a bowling alley, a swimming pool, a bank, office space, space-age parking, and your pie-shaped apartments upstairs. In the 60s, when we got the railroad, sadly, we turned our back on our river. It became a back alley, a dumping ground. But people who work downtown, they don't want to have to drive in. They want to live downtown. If you offer 24-hour urban living, he gives you a complete city with everything at your fingertips, an introvert's paradise. Oh, I have to warn you, I forgot. If you move to Marina City, guess what? You'll never park your own car again. It's not allowed. Only the valets get to park the cars, right? Because if you throw it in reverse by mistake, yeah, you kind of end up in the river. This is not pretty. Hey, look this up on YouTube when you get home. The Hunter, Steve McQueen. Steve McQueen was an action hero. In his last movie in 1980, they drove a Pontiac LeMans off the 17th floor of that parking garage. Now, the engine's in the front. The car was kind of like an Olympic diver as it went 24 feet, 12 meters down to the bottom of the river. I actually gave it a 9 out of 10 for that dive. Now, step back to 1914. Chicago is a museum of architecture because we have such of a euphonious cacophony of styles living side by side. This is what the entire river looked like 100 years ago, the old Reed Murdoch warehouse here. But you know what else? It introduces us to something I personally am a big fan of. Adaptive reuse. You don't always have to start from scratch and waste new materials. you can find a grand old building and give it new life. So you're looking at a 100-year-old warehouse thriving as an industrial-sized restaurant called River Roast. And you notice it's much more horizontal than vertical, yeah? The architect George Neiman's like the great Frank Lloyd Wright. Who's heard that architect's name? Associated with the style came right out of the Midwest here. It's called Prairie School. We don't have any mountains around here. Everything is as flat, flat, flat as a board. So Prairie School architects evoke the flatness of the landscape. Hey friends, listen in. I'll tell the truth of how we became birthplace to the skyscraper. We didn't have a choice. Because after that fire in 1871, the city passed an ordinance. You were not allowed, legally, you could not build with wood in downtown Chicago anymore, leaving you with masonry, brick. But that load-bearing exterior brick wall supporting your building is going to get 6 inches wider every time you add a floor higher, eating up all your floor space. So the evolution of the modern architectural frame occurs in 1885 when the Civil War bridge builder William LeBaron Jenney introduces for his home insurance building the iron and steel grid frame like every modern skyscraper, leading to this period, the first Chicago School of Architecture, 1885, as late as 1912 with this building. And this, friend, simple building, right, 10 or 12 stories, but the change is in how you're holding the building up, from an exterior wall to a skeleton. And it was only hop, skip, and jump as the crow flies. From those 10 to 12-story Chicago buildings to the 100-plus skyscrapers we have today. Whoa, on our right, get ready for the style that I could say put the roar in the roaring 20s, Art Deco, the 1930 Chicago merchandise mark. Now, Art Deco was a rather streamlined, sleek, machine-made look. It came out of the Paris exhibition of 1925. When I say Art Deco, you can think of the writer F. Scott Fitzgerald, The Great Gatsby, the Jazz Age. Well, I'm doing Graham hands. America in the 1920s was unbridled optimism and prosperity. Art Deco reflected the era. You're looking at the largest structure in America prior to completion of the Pentagon. 4,600 windows, 7 miles of hallways, had its own zip code. Commissioned for $38 million by the Marshall Field Department Store, who dreamed of a giant wholesale market but woke up to the Great Depression, and they had to let the building go for back taxes, $13.5 million by 1945. Who could afford it and make it work? Joseph P. Kennedy, the father of our late president and senators. Now here's the deal. Joe walks inside, realizes he got 96 acres of space inside. Let me give you a visual. You could put 73 American football fields inside the walls of the barn. So much space. He brings in the furniture design industry for showrooms and pioneers the idea of the trade show. Now, welcome to the beginning of Chicago, Wolf Point, where the 3 branches of the river meet. We approach from the main stem east, north branch right, south branch left. And the birthplace of downtown has truly become a showplace for our grandest architecture since 1983, in that building right on your left, the Nuveen building, Cone Pedersen Fox. Now, can you tell that's contextualism? Everything is reflecting the river, curves for the bank, reflects architecture, skyline, blue of the water and the sky. That building set the bar high and said, yo, you're going to build around me, bring your A game. The last 5 years, everybody has. Let's begin with the building directly ahead of us, with the beautiful red sculpture from Spanish architect, by the way, Santiago Calatrava did the sculpture called Constellation. The building by Pickard and Chilton is called River Point. Notice the arch at the bottom, which was inspired by the great arch of St. Louis, Missouri, our neighbors to the south, is nicely complemented with an inverted parabola, a scoop at the top. See the shape? You know who understands this building best? Little kids. They took one look at the shape and gave it the perfect nickname, the Hot Pockets Sandwich Building, because it looks like the microwave heating sleeve for a very popular American pastry. When kids came up with that nickname, I said, that is brilliant, because when you give a building a nickname, my friends, never discount your own brain. Your brain is seeking gestalt, common ground. A building's nickname is always going to be an image from your experience applied to that new shape. And just like those little kids in their Hot Pockets wrapper, a famous architect and a famous structural engineer in Chicago got an image stuck in their head of a bundle of sticks tied together for strength. So what did he do with that bundle of sticks in their head? They turned it into the tallest building on the planet Earth for the next 24 years. That would be the Sears Willis Tower. We'll be viewing it on the South Branch later. First, we want to tour the North Branch, a working industrial river in the midst of a residential renaissance. A pioneer of downtown living was the salmon-colored building on our left, or as Larry David would say, that salmon-colored building on our left. Harry Weiss's 1981 Fulton House. Look at the walls, 4-foot thick masonry. Now, this building was actually built in 1898 as a refrigerated warehouse for 70 years. So before Harry could punch windows and turn it into condos, think if you did not defrost your own freezer for 70 years. A little bit of icy buildup. Harry had to defrost the building for half a year, 6 months, and they say you remove 500 semi-truckloads of basically ammonia, brine, horsehair, and cork insulation. Whoa, and then Harry went to Amsterdam. He comes upon these quaint fishermen's cottages. He comes home, and he does a postmodern twist on the modern townhome with the River Cottages, 1988. The quaintness of fishermen's cottages meet the amenities of the day. Only 4 of them here. Someone sold number 3 for $2.25 million in 2015. Harry Weiss was going to live here himself back in the 80s. You know what all his friends said? Are you goofy, Harry? Why do you want to live on that dirty river? You know what Harry answered his critics? Water is a magnet. It will draw people to it. I think Harry understood the psychologist Carl Jung. That we humans, Spock, have a Jungian archetype in the brain. We long for the sea, the great blue, the azul. Thank you, William Shatner. And my friends, if you do not have an ocean of your own at your fingertips nearby, I am inviting you right now to stay with me in Chicago longer. And I guarantee a day will come for you as it came for me when I awoke in this city singing, a river is enough. A river is enough. El río es suficiente. La fleuve es suffisant. Ein Fluss ist genug. A river is enough. Well, as Jed Clampett of the Beverly Hillbillies might say, we know he's giving us a lot of information. It was. I think we need a break to rest and digest. This is a perfect time to see Chris, the bartender, use the restroom. See, it's getting residential. No, we want to turn the boat around. We're heading south to the Willis Sears Tower where all the tall buildings live. So I'm coming off mic to take questions one-on-one and say hello if you have any thus far in the tour. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention.